Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the panel about PR and blogging war stories. I have two eminent guests. Dmitri, do you mind introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about Arctic Startups?
Yeah, I am from Arctic Startup, which is the largest media blog about startups, entrepreneurship, investments in the Nordics and Baltics. We're not quite as big as TechCrunch, but we're getting there. We're doing a lot of things. It's not just media. We're doing events like Arctic 15, and we're actually building something called Wired.as, which is going to be like startup investor matchmaking and helping startups to push like really small news out. The stuff you don't write about, like the stuff where you have 2 new employees, for example.
Mm-hmm. What do you consider Arctic?
At the moment, it's Iceland, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and then Baltic is Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania. Sometimes Russia.
Yeah, I'm American. You need to explain to me what the Baltics are. Yeah. Mike.
It's north of France.
Mike, TechCrunch. What do you do for TechCrunch?
Well, I met Mike Harrington, who was the founder of TechCrunch, in a bar in London. And he'd founded TechCrunch in July of 2005. And really, because he was an investor, really. I think that's a lot of people forget that he was a lawyer, and he became a kind of an angel investor, dabbling around. And he used his blog as a way to kick the tires on new companies. Yeah. And gradually, because he was one of the few people who was really telling the truth, really, about technology companies and startups. By that time, about 2005, 2006, there was a lot of bullshit, really, about technology. It was just, press releases and, that kind of, sorry, press releases. But, and then he sort of revitalized tech journalism. But anyway, I met him there, and I started writing about European startups in 2000. And, well, actually, I started writing for TechCrunch in 2006, but I went full-time with them in 2007.
And you're an editor at large. What does that mean?
So I was European editor for a while, and now, really, I'm this thing called editor at large, which means that I don't have to stay in Europe, which is fantastic. I can go somewhere else.
Bali, big scene in Bali.
But I think the important thing is, I think that what we want, where I want to sort of position this is that Europe, because it's fragmentation, it's quite hard to be really big in Europe, but you can be big, but we want you to be big from Europe and to go global from Europe. And this is the way we think about startups. Is people will talk about, come up to me and say, Mike, you really should cover the startup scene in Turkmenistan. I'm like, why?
In Andorra, yes.
What I want is really good companies to come from Europe, and then we cover the companies, and the companies themselves get big and go global, because that's what they're interested in the Valley as well. They're interested in you being big. They're not really interested in where you're from. If where you're from, wherever, that's fine, but they want you to be big.
Yep, I agree.
So it's a long answer.
So we're going to be talking, usually there's a bit of a, I don't know. There's a friendship, yet there's kind of an antagonistic relationship between PRs and the media. But also, we're going to really talk about how you can pitch these guys, what stories they're interested in. But I'm going to tell a story from my side that is the typical. Not too long ago, we had a client who spoke off the record, unfortunately, to a journalist. And sadly, the story, we agreed that the story was not going to be published. It was for information only, for a story later on. And the journalist decided to go ahead and publish it. And it put a massive funding in serious jeopardy, right? And
who was it then?
I can't tell.
Oh, come on.
No, I won't. I have to be discreet and buy me a beer.
I'm going to get off. If you don't tell us now, I'm walking off stage.
Baby, what if it was one of yours? Okay. In any case, we had a person. In any case, it was one of those things where I absolutely understood that the journalist wanted to be first and wanted to report on the story, but we had an agreement. And the only thing that was keeping that conversation honest was the agreement. And that's one of the things I hate about people who do my job, is that they just take, the companies and the executives, and they make them so boring and just on message that you guys have nothing to work with, right? They just give you pat answers to questions, and there's no meat there. And what you guys really want is interesting color around stories. I don't want to be the one to shut that fire hose of interesting stuff off, but when we can't trust the journalist to keep their word, we're in a really, dreams die. I mean, I'm not just talking about, oh, you broke a story. No, the VC says, that's it. We're not signing the term sheet, and they die. So dreams die on the vine. So how do we keep this? And you guys have had stories, and I'll actually turn to you first, Dmitri, where you've worked, and we frustrated the hell out of you. So how do we keep a happy balance between us? And do you want to tell your worst PR story or pitching story?
I mean, you mentioned embargoes, and I think it's kind of a hot topic for, in general, people talk about breaking embargoes, and TechCrunch sometimes breaks embargoes, and actually we broke embargoes a couple of times too as well. It's not just, it's everybody does it. Sometimes it's...
Yeah, that's bullshit.
What's bullshit?
No, we don't break embargoes.
I have never had Mike break an embargo.
We get, now let me explain. What we do is we get a story, and then we talk to, and when we say, listen, we want to break this before anybody else, and we get the person who's releasing it to agree, that's up to them. That is up to them. It's a free country. And then we release it. And then the other journalists come back to us and say, you broke the fucking embargo, blah, blah, blah. We didn't break the embargo. We got the story ahead of the other person.
That's good.
So I think that, but let's not get into a pissing match about breaking embargoes, because at the end of the day, it's just flotsam and jetsam of, the hustle and bustle of media. And apart from anything else, the point is, a lot of the time, not to be unkind, but a lot of the time, the company wants their news out on a very, very big news outlet, and we are quite a big news outlet. That's basically point of fact. I didn't want to interrupt, but
no worries. I actually didn't want to say that at all, because, as I said, we break embargoes as well. So I didn't actually, say anything bad about you guys. So I was kind of saying that everybody does it, not just TechCrunch, and we've broken embargoes by accident a couple of times as well.
Oh yeah, we break embargoes by accident all the time.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. I mean, I think, to answer your question really, is that it's good when it's very clear cut. It's good when it's on paper. It's good when it's, sometimes people forget to add an embargo in general. So, but I don't think we should focus on embargoes at all in this discussion. I don't think that's a main thing. I think the main thing is to teach the startups to actually talk to us in a way which makes it beneficial for them, and where it makes it beneficial for us, and everybody can do their job really well. I have a story about a Latvian company, and Arctic startup is smaller than TechCrunch, and that's why sometimes people pitch to us, and they don't know how to pitch yet.
So what kind of stories do you cover? What's of interest to you?
For example, there was, I just want to tell this story from Latvia, because I think it will be relevant to the culture here. And basically, there was one guy who is actually in here right now, and their company is doing quite well.
You bet Mike's going to ask you, he's going to walk off the stage.
And I'm not going to tell him he can walk off the stage again. But basically, the company sent us, instead of a press release, right? They sent us, hey, Dmitri, here's an article for you. It's ready. Write it, that's it. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. Never had that one before. So I read through it, and then it's Arctic startup thinks that this company is up and coming and great. And I was like, seriously? This guy is telling me that, and okay, I think many journalists would kind of turn it away and ignore it. But at Arctic startup, we kind of understand that we are small too, right? And people make mistakes. So we replied to that guy saying, look, this is not how it's done. Right? It's not going to work. We'll talk to you, and we'll do an interview, and we'll actually do a story later, because the link that you had there looked cool, right? We actually click the links all the time just to check if they're doing something good. So, and later we found out that in Latvia, apparently it's normal practice. That in Latvia,
to deliver the story completely.
For normal journalists, papers, it's actually good practice to send a ready article, right? So they were not doing something wrong per se, they just didn't know. So I think it's important to let people know exactly how to
your
approach
journalistic
media.
standards.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's important that people search it. Mike does have a very, very good pitch online. If you search for Mike Butcher, how to pitch to media, it's really good, and it gets you kind of the basics there. So, yeah.
I want to take issue with the point you made earlier about journalists breaking a confidentiality. I mean, To be honest with you, there aren't really many rules about this. If a journalist said they'd spoken to the source off the record, and they considered that to be a very, very good story, I don't know the circumstances of what you were talking about, but let's just talk about it hypothetically. If they considered it to be a very good story, and they went back to their source and said, listen, I've decided, and they stand the story up with a second source, then there's no, at that point,
That's a gray area.
all bets are off.
You're really right, and I think actually, no, please tell, because I'll add color to it, but I think you're on to what happened.
But so you can talk to a journalist off the record on background, but if they can stand it up, you got to be aware that their job is to find out what the hell's going on.
Yep.
So if they find out similar information and they stand up the story, that's a phrase we have in the media, stand the story up. In other words, we
corroborate
it.
Somebody else.
Corroborate the story. Then it's fair play, and that's the media. Now they might be playing a short game where they piss that source off, and they're really annoyed with the journalist. But that might make the journalist's career, for all they know. It might mean that the journalist gets promoted because of that story. Remember? So you've got to understand that we're interested in what's going on. And it's our job to find shit out, basically.
And look, okay, so that you did a great job of not calling my bluff, but adding color to the story, which was actually what you just described. Now, let me add some backstory. My first husband was a spy. So,
good job, that one.
I'll tell about the second, third, and fourth husbands later.
She's actually, this is the truth.
It is the truth.
Her first husband was a spy.
And so I actually know how spies ask leading questions and get people, much like journalists, get people to tell them information they shouldn't tell them.
When did you find out he was a spy?
I'll have to kill you if I tell you that information. And then the upshot being that what happened to this actually wasn't even a client at the time, was exactly that. The journalist had asked them questions and got them, pretended that they knew the information already, and simply got him to confirm things by pretending that they knew the amount of the funding, who it was, etc. So he just fell for it, hook, line, and sinker, right? I mean, just walked right into the trap. And then what happened is this journalist then turned around and got the information corroborated. They got this guy to say yes, even though there was agreement, I'm not going to publish this, got it corroborated from an outside source, and then went back to us and said, I'm sorry, I've gotten this, I've decided to go ahead. Came to us and said, I've decided to break our agreement because I want to be first. And, that was that. Like, that was that, and it was really, and my reaction to the client was, okay, if you don't want it to be reported, you don't freaking say it. It's real simple, right? And we were brought in after the fact to counsel and try to, not stop it from happening, but at least explain to them what happened. And so, frankly, all's fair in love, war, and journalism. This is what happens when you open your mouth, and you need to know when to open your mouth and when not to open your mouth.
I think there's also the flip side of this is everybody's, we're all human beings, and some of us are very nice and upstanding, and some of us are just plain fucking evil, right? And there are evil journalists out there. I know a journalist in London who used to ring up tech companies and say, if you don't give me this story, then I will trash you in my publication. So you give me the story now, or I will trash you. Right?
Which one are you, Mike?
I'll tell you after over a beer.
I'll tell you. He's a good guy.
But to be honest with you, that strategy did not last very long. And unfortunately, and the title had to close because the journalist painted himself into a corner whereby eventually both startups and investors, particularly investors, would no longer talk to this journalist. Okay? So it's a short game that gets you somewhere, but in the long term does not get you anywhere. I've been a journalist for coming up 20 years, and I've always played a long game with my sources. I always protect my sources. If there's any problems, I always look after my sources who give me stories. It's a long game, because we're all going to be in this for a long time, aren't we, right? You guys are all about 12. You're all about the youngest ones of you in your sort of teens or your early 20s. The oldest ones of you are, barely as old as I am. I mean, I'm about 3,000 years old. And
We call him Methuselah.
yeah, and so we're all going to be in this for a long time. We're going to be seeing each other at conferences, you name it, for a long time. So we've got to, we've got to play fair. You know, there's always going to be give and take on any story. But why don't let's get into some like stuff about this practical, like
stuff that
you know that
people
you
can
might
actually
want
use.
to know. Like one of the things I think that happens a lot of the time is a startup's got a product and they want to be able to to the media. And now Colette did a good presentation earlier about how to talk to the media and things like that. But I think you've got to remember that we, at the media, we are assaulted from you get tons of email, you get SMS. You know, I've just come from San Francisco. I got here at midnight last night. The Infogram guys had mailed me last night saying they were going to break the story that they had funding today, this morning. So I've basically got to fit in some sleep, coffee, and writing some stories, right? So and getting here. So there's quite a lot going on. And there's a shitload. I mean, there's 750 million people in Europe, okay? That's double what there is in the US. And we've only got, just to give you the heads up, we've only got three full-time journalists, including me, in London, one part-time, one in India, one in Singapore, in our time zone. So we've got to sort of cover what hell's going on, you know, outside of US hours. So there's an enormous amount of incoming. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest takeaways I want you guys to take away with is warning. Give us a warning that you are about to make an announcement about a funding or a launch or a new product or an app or, you know, whatever it is. I don't care about you hiring some new marketing assistant. I don't care about that. I want you to, the big stuff, like funding, apps launch, you know, big shit going on, you've just been acquired, whatever it is, that's what I want to know. But I want you to warn us because we have an enormous amount of incoming. In the old days, back when you guys were kids, there was this thing called the telephone. Now, just let me just sort of
and the facts.
Let me just
facts.
set the picture. For those of you who aren't aware of this, I'll just describe it. It was a thing that sat on a desk and it would ring, and then somebody would answer. You talk live. It's a real-time application, and it was also hardware, which is pretty sexy, right? Hardware is quite sexy now. So this real-time voice application in the form of hardware called a telephone. And you would sit on a desk, and people would ring you. It would go ring, 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 ring. You probably haven't heard. Most things now go something like that. And so you go like that. Ah, okay. And there's also a thing called a fax machine. You probably haven't heard of this. This was it would come out paper. It was like a photocopier. So that's how. Now we have all of that stuff plus multiple incoming on multiple platforms. So I can get stories from Facebook's messages, SMS, direct messages on Twitter. Twitter, by the way, is fantastic because the only people who can DM me on Twitter are the people I'm following and who also follow me back. If I don't like them, I just unfollow them and they can never contact me again. It's fantastic. So
I think about facts.
So warning is important. Last thing, warning. Always warn people. You give us warning, then we'll be able to start thinking about whether or not we're going to cover it or how we're going to slip it into, how we're going to fit it into getting from San Francisco to Latvia, for instance.
Dmitri.
Yep.
Okay?
I mean, how much warning what do you need? Because you don't want to hear it 3 months in advance. What really do you guys need to hear?
I think it's also going to matter between like us.
Yeah, not 3 months in advance.
Like for us, right? We write rather quickly, and
as does you're just constantly. That's what blogging is.
So for us, actually, like even if it's like 1 day, 2 day, we'll be fine with that. Actually, if somebody does figure out my fax number and sends me a fax, I'll definitely publish the story. Or finds out a landline, that'd be good. Or sends me a real mail, something like that. I'll be happy with that. But I think
not real mail.
But how much time is enough time, Mike? When you say warning, what do you want?
I think the ideal time is roughly a week before.
Okay.
we're
Roughly.
okay with a couple of days.
If you're pressed for time and you just closed funding or something and your investors are saying, look, we want you to get this out, or you're like 2 days before a major conference and that's an ideal time to release something, then, okay, fine, understand. But, the more warning you can give, I'm not talking to 3 months is far too long because we'll just forget, because there'll be so much in between that and the announcement date. But, warning is really important. I think that's, because I've been going through my notes and what you were saying, and I think that's kind of the big takeaway. One of the problems is and also I think how you approach people is say, can we go for coffee? Oh, I don't want to go for coffee.
It takes so much time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go for coffee with my friends. I just want you to tell me what the fuck you're doing, right?
Short and sweet.
So
make it a preview pane, people. Don't make them search.
I think there's another angle to the
Or
warning
maybe
side.
if you're really good looking, I'll go with you for coffee, but
to the
or
warning.
drinks.
Which is how we met, I think.
But whatever.
So I think there's another angle to the whole warning thing. I think it also matters about how you speak to journalists, because what kind of language you use. Like a lot of the people that contact us, they're very inhumane.
That's an interesting choice of words.
And what I mean is they're very they sound like robots, I guess.
Okay.
That's kind of that's not what we want. We want people to be friendly and be human. I think the best advice I can.
But tell the
can
truth
do.
and be succinct.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for example, with the warning, there's also a double-edged sword there. I think sometimes is that a couple of times people have given us warning in a very wrong tone. For instance, there was a time when they said us, okay, this is the news we're coming out. We expect you to publish it. And we're like, okay, right, that's great that you expect us to publish it, but we don't even know what the story is yet. So I think it's very important to actually figure out how you do it. And
never tell a journalist what to do, because although many of us are very polite, our mothers brought us up well, that we are polite people, and we'll say, I'm terribly sorry, that's not quite how it works. But there are other journalists who will take real offense, okay? And you can't guarantee what reaction you'll get if you say, this is our announcement, you must publish it today, blah, blah, blah.
Or this is a story you want to hear. No, don't tell us that. Just tell us the story.
Your finger is not hovering over the publish button on WordPress. My finger is hovering over the publish button on WordPress. So it's, I'm afraid that's the name of the game. But I want to take issue with something that you said earlier, which was that you said that never talk about your competitors or.
No, I said do talk about your competitors.
No, you said don't get into a pissing match with your competitors. Well, actually, I prefer to say I think actually it's not a bad thing to start fights, because fights are news. One of the things that Apple used to do, Steve Jobs used to do, was he would start fights with other companies to get press. And I think if you're confident enough that you're capable of being a giant killer, then why not? I mean, if you're a startup and you want to be disruptive, then make news that way. I mean, the best example I can think of this is a company called Huddle, which is out of the UK, and where they have a competitor to SharePoint, effectively. And so they hired a marching band to go and march up and down the SharePoint conference in San Francisco, like this, with girls and acrobatics, majorettes, the whole works. Huddle everywhere logos outside of the Microsoft SharePoint conference, and did a really funny YouTube video, and there was substance to this as well. They felt that their company and their features and everything were way better than SharePoint. And that became a news item. It wasn't a big news story, but it was, a fun thing. So if you think you can be a giant killer, if you can hold a 44 Magnum to the head of a big company and say, we're going to kill you, then that becomes an interesting story, potentially, if you can convince the journalist, right? So, that's fine.
Number one, that was a publicity stunt, which is kind of cute and funny. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Point taken. Number two, I was talking about going feature to feature, whiny. Like, we do that too. We're in color too. No, they don't care. Mike doesn't care. Dmitri doesn't care. But yeah, if you really want to, take a swing, fine. That's a different thing. I don't mean when they can make a little announcement, you come out and compete.
You can only do this once or twice. You can't do it every time you do
take a big swing too.
You work up to it. Take a big swing, but don't. Press releasing every new feature announcement doesn't work.
That's fair. How about pitches that have worked? What, like, give me some examples of things, Dmitri, that
I think-
really you've just loved.
Usually short, right? That's like
I'm
the main
sensing a
thing.
theme here.
It's very, very, very short, and it's usually something which just gets to the point. No marketing language, right? I hate marketing language.
And
even-
sales language.
And
no.
sales language. Like we're the best startup in the world, disrupting.
Revolutionary.
Revolutionary.
We disrupted revolutions.
You're a global leader.
Yeah, global reader. Robin Reuters from actually somebody
TechCrunch.
wrote an app. Yeah, from
But you
TechChill.
also have no competitors.
No
Oh,
competitors.
if
no
you don't have any competitors, that's probably because you're in the wrong industry and you suck.
So somebody from when Robin Reuters had a birthday, somebody wrote a Chrome extension for him, which filtered out all these words.
That's
so
hilarious.
like that's awesome because it actually makes it readable. So like when people do that, it's horrible.
So
Concise, short, bullet points, links, YouTube videos, everything just, I can make my own decision about what you're doing.
whether it's newsworthy or not.
Yeah.
How about when people say, well, your competitor is going to, if you don't cover it, Mike, the Financial Times is going to. How do you react to that kind of?
Walk off the stage.
I would.
I think, look, what you've got to do is you've got to think about who is the audience that this media outlet is going to go to. And if you're going to, for instance, for a bigger company, they might call us at TechCrunch and say, listen, we're going to be doing this story. We're briefing a tech blog, a big tech blog, TechCrunch. We're going to brief a national newspaper like the Financial Times or the Times in London. And we're going to pitch a niche title or something. This sort of three-tiered launch strategy is a good idea because I'm not competing against the Financial Times because we're in a big niche. I want to beat the crap out of the Financial Times, don't get me wrong, but if this is the way it's going to be pitched to us, then we see that's a relatively fair thing because Financial Times readers are a very, very broad business market, and we are in the technology, venture, and startup niche, which is quite a big one, big global one. But we always want to beat those guys. We want to beat everyone. We want to beat you. We want to beat everybody. But if that's the way it's going to be pitched, then fine. But what people don't like is say we're going to give this to TechCrunch and GigaOM and Read Write Web because we all compete with each other.
And you need to remember that there is competition, and this is actually that's a super fair point. When we pitch and talk to Mike and his team, we're always up front. We're giving this to you. It has to go out simultaneously for whatever reason. You need to know that. Or again, we actually prefer the strategy that he's outlined, right? Because they're technically not in direct competition, which means Mike knows. And sometimes what we actually do is we look at the news and we divide out bits of it, and we tell Mike, you know what? We're only giving you this aspect of the news. This bit is your information and your information only. The other folks aren't getting it. And then they know, and we follow through, always follow through. And then you know that you have something specifically for you.
Like, talking about competition, actually, I think that was a very interesting point, because whenever we speak to journalists and everything, I think there's a bit of a difference between, like, the US and, say, local ones, right?
Okay.
Like, say, in Europe. Like, whenever we talk to TechCrunch, we do feel there's some competition there. But whenever we talk to anybody, like, local, then we're always trying to work together. And I think both ways are good. It's good, like, okay, we're a lot smaller than TechCrunch, of course. But I think, like, this region is very good at working together. We work with Horizon startups. We work with Swedish startup space. We try to work with everyone, so we don't try to compete. But at the same time, like, people should know who is competing with who, right? Yeah. So if they know that we're not competing with Horizon and we'll just straight forward publish it from their side, then that's okay. But if they don't know like that we're competing, then they might there might be tension there.
I'm curious though, are you competing? Do you read Arctic Startup for some
Absolutely.
ideas?
When Ville Vesteren started Arctic Startup, we used to talk quite regularly, and also because, we'll compete. But the other thing I think is worth pointing out is that because of maybe we're got quite a big global platform. I don't know how many readers we've got now. Something like 20 million a month or something, quite a lot. I will take a pitch from a fellow journalist in Europe who says, listen, Mike, we're going to break this story tomorrow. It's a little bit like, you know all the Edward Snowden stuff, how the New York Times and the Guardian were publishing both stories, the same stories simultaneously. It was because there were media outlets corroborating over quite a big story. Now, it doesn't happen very often because most of the time, you know, sometimes, usually there aren't that many big, really big, genuinely big stories. But sometimes you'll have a local blog or a regional blog, say a blog in Turkey or Germany or France or something, who says, look, we're going to break this really big story tomorrow. We appreciate you not, going ahead with a post or something, but we want to give you a heads up. And if you want to follow, or if you want to come out at the same time, then that would be awesome. Now, obviously, it's because they want a link from TechCrunch to their blog, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not necessarily saying I'm not going to do that, because it might be a genuinely good story, and this has actually happened occasionally with Arctic Startup and a couple of other blogs in Europe, is that they'll say to me, listen, we've got a really good story, but we're going to give you a heads up. We're going to publish it at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Do you want to, here's the details, and we can go out together. They get juice from us. We get to put it on TechCrunch at the same time, and everybody wins. So that's actually not such a bad thing. Journalists it's kind of like honor amongst thieves. We do occasionally,
sometimes very well,
once in a while, we do cooperate a bit.
I know we want to take some questions from the audience, but I think just in summary, you heard it from me, but you're hearing it directly from the source. Concise, honest, give a little bit of a heads up on big news. It's common sense, guys. Common sense. And also, do not be playing them off of each other. That's just, it's not nice, and you'll probably lose anyway. Just don't, be upfront. We are always upfront. Again, I will tell Mike, look, we're talking to these 3 guys. Here's where you fit in. If I can hold back some information and give it only to him, he's got it, and he knows he's got it. There are also times when I will just pick up the phone, no trace, no paper, no anything, and tell him a few things that he might need to know about a story to add. And he knows that I'm a source that he can trust, and he's getting the information, straight from either I'm the source or I'm standing next to the source at the time. You ready for some questions?
I mean, the only thing I wanted to add to that is that the be human aspect. I think you need to actually figure out who the bloggers are and what they write about.
Read what they write, for heaven's sake.
Oh God, please! That's a good. That's a really good point.
Sometimes they pitch to somebody who doesn't know anything about Bitcoin, and they go we're this big, huge Bitcoin startup, right? And that person just doesn't write about that.
They leave trails of these guys are writing all the time. You can understand their interests, what they really care about, what they write about, maybe what Mike doesn't write about and he gives to Natasha. They leave a trail. It's easy.
The funniest thing is, being pitched. The email typically reads like this: Hi, Mike. I'm a big fan of your blog. Okay. I've been reading you for years. Right. Okay. I'd like to pitch you a story, a wonderful new story about a technology. We're able to reach deep sea submarines under the polar ice cap using ultra-wideband technology.
You've lost us.
I'm like, no, you obviously don't read TechCrunch at all.
I'm not the guy.
You're not a big fan of my blog, and you're just bullshitting. So, always go for the writer. Try and find the writer who really is interested in your particular niche. If it's enterprise or Bitcoin or whatever, go for them, because they're the one that wants that story.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make 2 quick points.
Okay, and then we'll take some Q&A.
Crowdfunding. You're wrong. Crowdfunding is a story.
I didn't say it wasn't a story. I said I wasn't capable of commenting on it intelligently.
No. I was going to say, when often startups do launch crowdfunding campaigns, and that can be a story, and I'll tell you why. Because the journalists, you got to think, journalists are a bit egotistical as well, and they love to be early to a story. And if they think that something's going to blow up, they like to be early. They like to be the one who is prescient, who called it.
They like
early.
scoops.
They like scoops. So you can always pitch a crowdfunding story to journalists, and they might think, yeah, okay, that's not bad.
I didn't say it wasn't news. I said don't hire a PR firm to pitch it.
Oh yeah, don't hire a PR firm. Don't do that. Don't hire a PR firm at all, actually.
I said it first.
And it's a waste of money. Complete waste of money. No, I tell you a lie. look, when you hire a PR firm is when you need one, when you've got too many people coming to you saying blah, 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 and you need the professional skills of people like Colette and her team and others. There are a lot of other, there are competitors to Colette's firm,
A lot of
believe it
advertising
or not. But there, but you know, when you can afford €5,000 a month retainer, then that's when you hire a PR firm. But the other thing is investors can be your PRs as well. Investors love to
Good
be
point.
PRs. And the investors, all of this is a filter. It's a trusted filter because it's somebody who has got a relationship with the media, already a journalist. And so investors, they've all got relationships with us. I know loads of the VCs and the angels in Europe. So when an investor or a VC comes to me and says, Mike, we funded this firm, that's basically the same job, right?
Yeah.
As a PR or as a marketing person or whatever. So, but yeah, this is also, I'm not
Great
dissing
point.
PRs, but I'm just saying, you know, there are other ways to skin a cat, that's all.
Absolutely, and I'll agree with you, hands down.
Okay.
We want to take
So-
some questions, I know.
Yeah. You love short questions. And you have long
Say-
answers.
Say your name, what your company is and what you do, and then your question.
Yeah,
Yeah, be concise, precise, and actionable.
Okay, go. There's one over there.
Yeah. I will take afterwards one more question. That's it.
nice catch.
Hello.
We know you.
Hey there.
Yeah, Amaya from Rubylight. We're investors. I have the question about off-the-record information, which journalists have, for example, had received during the interview. What is the value for the journalist of this information, from this
I think,
information?
like, for us, like, we always speak to a lot of people, and we love to connect to everybody and to know what's happening. So we won't write it, of course, but it's good to know what's happening in general in the ecosystem. Maybe that will lead to another lead later. Maybe we're going to learn something, you know, what you're going to do in like a couple of months. It's giving us a heads up again, a warning, as Mike said, about maybe something we're going to write later. So, but then again, some journalists don't know what that word means off the record. You never know.
Well, no, I disagree. So there's off the record basically means I'm going to give you information, but you can't say where you got this information from. You can't source it. But what you've got to do is when you talk to the journalist, you say, listen, off the record, blah, 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 blah. Now, but then be clear. This is, I can tell you off the record that blah, blah, blah. Now, on the record, I can tell you blah, blah, blah. I have these conversations all the time. They'll literally say, halfway through the sentence, say, off the record, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm back on the record now. You know, and then there's another, the third one, which is deep background. So on background, I can tell you something, and that what you're saying to the journalist is, listen, I'm going to tell you something really important, but you can't really use it. I'm telling it for your information. So on background, that guy's a crook. Okay? Now I'm back on the record. Yes, we believe that he's one of the best investors in Europe today.
And actually, I'm going to
No,
actually...
they won't say that. That's obviously completely contradictory. But, but no, they'll say, yes, Mike, we believe that so-and-so is one of the more significant startups of the scenes at the moment. Okay, can we go off the record now? Okay, off the record, they screwed us over a deal. You know, they're complete crooks, etc., etc.
And the CEO's on
You
crack.
can't use this information, but I'm telling you now, Mike, those guys, be warned. Okay, back on the record now. Yeah, no, we believe that we like competition, blah, 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 blah. So this will happen all the time.
What I do when I give off the record is I preface it. I open, it's like parentheses. This is off the record, da-da-da-da-da. Then that's the end of the off the record when I give that information. I will also say things be like, Mike, here's some information, and you can say sources close to the deal said, right? I'll give that kind of information.
Yeah, that's the other thing is effectively you can tell people out there what the hell is going on, but you don't screw yourself.
I will also
Yeah?
say, here's some information. You can't say it came from me. Here's somebody who's likely to corroborate it. Go talk to them, and then he's got his second source, right? Like there are all kinds of ways of dropping this.
I couldn't possibly comment.
couldn't
but if you
possibly
would like to
comment
ring
on
this
that.
person, they might be able to fill you in. See you.
Second
So-
question, quick one.
Any quick question?
Oh, there's
There's
some.
one.
Let's just take all the questions, like real quick.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Richard. I work at Tilde. We're a
And you've got a very deep voice.
Ah,
the effect of the box. We're a language technology company that makes customized machine translation systems. My question is simple. When do you know that you need a PR company? And perhaps everyone can answer from their own
It's like with
perspective.
You got a lot of money.
It's like with marriage. You just know.
Both of you are useless. Oh, did I say, am I on microphone? Sorry.
You're on the record right now.
Whoops.
One more?
I mean, you need a PR company. A lot of the time, you need PR company because they can actually present you to, often to, I mean, put it this way. Are you going to be able to reach the Financial Times in London? It's going to be hard.
If you're based here, yeah, that might be hard.
It's really super hard. So you're hiring, basically what you're doing is you're hiring people who have existing relationships with the media. They're trusted because they've played a long game. They know the industry, and the journalists know them, and they are a filter. PR companies are a source. They're a genuine source. So when the Financial Times gets a call from Colette or from other equivalent PR companies in London or wherever they are, then they know that this person's a genuine, company because they're basically this PR company has done due diligence on you to find out if you're full of shit or not, and basically off you go. Now, but I mean, if you're still bootstrapping, you're not going to hire a PR firm because I mean, it's cost loads of money. Okay, go. Next question. Go over there.
That's the last one.
Now, go on then. Who's got another question? Come on. Quick questions? Right. You
Go.
Go.
I'm Edwards, and I'm a former journalist for digital media. And my question is, because both of you are understaffed, are you getting often fooled by information you get?
Fooled? As in false information and you're not detecting it?
Understuffed and we're getting food?
Meaning that you
I do eat
maybe
sometimes.
don't have resources for
To investigate.
fact-checking.
Okay.
And it's also related to these press releases, because often, especially in Latvia, press releases don't have true information. Yeah? Your comments about this?
I mean, I think everyone's pretty understaffed these days, but well, understuffed, shall we say? But I mean, I think it's if you're a company issuing a press release which is factually incorrect, wrong, and even worse, might even tell lies, and the journalist takes it on good faith that what you've said there is correct. They don't have time to check, every single fact or whatever, and they publish a story, and then their news editor comes to them and says, that story's wrong, or all the comments come in on the post and go, oh, this guy's, full of shit, what the hell are you doing, etc. Guess what's going to happen?
Like, nobody's going to talk to you ever again. We just had this thing in Latvia, actually. I cannot disclose fully because we didn't complete the investigation for food, but basically somebody called me saying that we wrote about a Latvian company and that the information in there is not right. And these are the partners of that company, and I'm still waiting for a reply from them, but if they confirm that, and if they say that this is not true, I'm never ever going to speak to those people again. I'm never going to write a story on that.
It's done.
And I'll tell Colette and Mike about it as well. Because
Yeah, we all talk to each
We
other.
all talk to each other.
So, I mean, and that is like, that's the boy who cried wolf, isn't it? You can only really do that once,
But
and you're done.
At the same time, I think that's true. But at the same time, I think Arctic Startup at least is trying to be nice to startups as well, teach them about things like that. So when that happens, I will call the company and actually ask, did you do that? Did you do that mistake? And I'll try to figure out and try to be nice, and because we're trying to teach them, right?
Good for
because
you.
we're a small startup ourselves, right? So we gotta be close to the community here.
I've got a little nice story we can end on, if you like, which
Okay.
is that, well, first is that, now you can do that once, and then, you won't really
Fool me
do
once,
that
shame
again.
on you.
But there's other things going on. Like, for instance, at TechCrunch, we used to do this quite a lot, actually, which is if we get a really stupid press release that was stupid, and we just reprint it and say, this is a really stupid press release. Who the hell are these people? Who the hell are these people?
You protect who it is from. You always do. You're always careful.
This is our dumb press release of the day, and then we just reproduce it, and everyone will just laugh at it, laugh at the company person who sent it to them. Now, that was easier in the US because in the US there are the libel laws are completely different. So, you know, you can do that kind of thing, no problem. Everyone laughs at it. You try and sue TechCrunch, it's not going to happen. It's a bit harder in London. But the other thing is that if you're a real asshole, then something might happen to you. So let me tell you a little story. A journalist I know was badgered incessantly by a company, like to the max. Kept on saying, listen, you know, this isn't our story. Thank you very much for pitching the story to us, but this isn't our kind of a story. But the company kept on going on at them and saying, no, it is, and you've got to publish. And eventually, they realized that the company in question didn't own their Twitter account.
Oh.
So the journalist took the Twitter account of the name of the company and then started publishing on that Twitter account how they were all doing drugs and, you know, screwing each other and stuff like that. And that Twitter account then ended up in the media because it was a company that other media companies were covering. And lo and behold, guess what? The Twitter account eventually had to be got taken down because the company gradually noticed. So,
Moral of the story be?
I know, God, I had no idea who this person was, but you know, be careful out there. Okay. Good night.
All right. Thank you guys so very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dmitri and
Thanks,
Mike.
Colette.
Follow me.